Okay, I'd like to call to order the meeting today. We're going to have, unfortunately, we got some news from the town at about 3 o'clock today that there are no PDFs of the two jobs we were going to do. So according to the attorney, we cannot review the 140, 169 or 169 Ram Island Drive or the other one. Cheekwood Avenue. Right. So anybody who's waiting to hear about that, and I see Pam's on, she's the one that alerted us to this. Thank God for Pam, that she's on top of things and, watching for us. I appreciate that. We're sorry we can't handle your thing. You can listen to our meeting. We're going to have some interesting discussions on pesticides and invasive species, and some things might even, we're going to talk about the near shore property in the code, Article 133, which might interest you. Anyway, we'll start with the first thing. The first thing is to review the minutes of the last meeting. Anybody have any objections or anything to them? Everybody approve them? Okay,
The only thing I wanted to add, I don't know that it's an objection, but I had to come via Zoom. So when it came to the voting, there wasn't any way I could do, I was trying to vote, but the chat was turned off. So there was no way to communicate with you to say that I would have.
No, you can't vote.
You can't vote if you're on Zoom. I did not know that. Okay, thank you.
But you can send in email your comments and we can review them at the meeting.
Okay. Well, hopefully that won't happen again. I just happen to be honest.
No, that's good.
But I just wanted to make sure that that was correct. Okay, thank you. I learned something. Appreciate it.
So we take a vote on the minutes. Everybody agree with them?
I wasn't here, so I won't vote.
Okay, so five.
Yes, right.
Approve the minutes as written. Okay. So item 3 and item 4, actually, because Dan's not here to go over the invasive plant list, we'll put on to the next agenda in May. May 8th is the next meeting. And now we got into something that I guess it's good that Jim is here, because we're getting into CAC articles for Jim. Has anything been decided on who's going to review the wetland approvals?
No, I think it's part of tomorrow's discussion, right? Is there on the agenda for that?
No, so the correspondence being accepted until tomorrow,
okay.
next week, we'll review that, but the hearing is still open, so it's not.
Yeah. By the way, there would, if.
No, hearing is closed, sorry. Next week.
The meeting is closed except for written.
Correspondence until tomorrow.
Yeah, but I have taken some notes on the previous comments from last meeting from the public.
Right.
So I put a lot of notes here that if you want to share those notes with you, I will, but there's no final decision on this. I think we had asked that, we look at the way we do it presently, the way that they want to do it in the future, and where there's common ground and where there is significant differences. And was there a hybrid way of something in between? That was a call from some of us on the town board that we were going to say, we know how it's been done, we know what's proposed. Is there any possibility to satisfy some of the concerns that the public had, particularly about the responsibility end of what I think the public was looking for is a series of checks and balances so that the town board was not totally divorcing itself from the wetlands issues. Is that basically what I heard for most of the comments? But I do look at the role of the liaison here. I look at possible future amendments in the town code that need to be looked at, and not just along this, but different amendments, and the comprehensive plan for the future, and really trying to spell out the importance of the wetlands and the comprehensive plan. I think those are 4 areas, actually, the checks and balances, the role of the liaison, and both of these committees, whether we're talking about CAC or planning board, the amendments in the town code and the comprehensive plan. I think they all need to be carefully looked at, supported. There's no doubt that anybody make an argument to the importance of wetlands, protecting wetlands, now more than ever, with rising sea levels and things like that. So it's just ultimately who's going to be making this part of the decision-making process, who's in a better position to do it, who feels more qualified. But again, I'm only one of 5 people on the town board. Regardless of whether I relinquish any responsibilities, I do think the ultimate responsibility obviously comes back always to the town board when you decide that you can change something is, at least 3 people on that town board to be convinced that this is the way they want to go. So I think I'm going into that next meeting a week from tomorrow with a clear open mind. I'm going to look at
Well,
what's out there.
what do we think? I mean, I gave my opinion at the meeting that they had, and it was, I'll tell you what I said. I said, I think that our approval for wetlands must stay with the board because it's a governing board, not an appointed committee, which can change at any time. And here we have elected officials, their responsibility to the land. And plus, because they have supervisors meetings with other town people, we depend on the whole island and even Connecticut because we have Fisher's Island over there, which is part of North Fork. That depends on what we do with our wetlands and we depend on what they do. So what do you think? Do you think just anything?
Well, I think we're going to be a little bit more, we're going to advocate a lot more for the wetlands, and take us more seriously, I think.
Do you think the responsibility of approval of the wetlands
Yeah, I mean, I think,
should stay with the town board?
well, I don't know. I mean, the planning board has a lawyer, they have an engineer,
Right.
they have all that. I think our recommendations have to be a lot more, we have to, go for it a little more, the 100-foot thing, I think, should really be enforced,
Well,
if it's at all possible.
I'll talk about that later.
You know.
It is enforced, by the way, of the areas of the code. So,
Yeah.
what's your opinion on it?
I think ultimately elected officials are the one that need to have, that's why we have government, right? Not for some volunteers to make decisions.
Well, they're not really volunteers, they are paid.
No, I mean,
Us, no,
Yeah, we're strictly
our
advisory.
role will not change.
That won't change.
That stays the same.
so,
But the people making the decision on whether it gets approved, our decisions get accepted, will be to the planning board. That's my understanding what they're doing, so. And there is some little restrictions in the code, but they're minor. I mean, demolition and stuff, that can be worked out at another
I
time.
mean, it certainly wouldn't hurt if have people who are subject matter experts have sufficient say in the decision. As opposed to people who just connect it one way or the other.
Okay, how about you, Mark?
Planning board, is there a lawyer? They don't,
Yeah.
they have a lawyer,
They have a lawyer.
but is that a person who's on the board because they're a lawyer, or is that?
No, that's separate.
That's
They
separate.
have their own lawyer, their own engineer.
Okay, that's part of their committee, they'll always have a lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I understand, all right. But I would think it makes sense to have, that's great that they have a lawyer, because some of these issues could be with legal issues you have to be aware of, as far as different things. But the lawyer there is different than the town's lawyer, correct? A different individual?
Sure.
Okay, so I think it's like checks and balances. You have 2 committees to look at things and also 2 lawyers to look at things, because it sort of helps.
There's also a separate engineer
But that lawyer
from
doesn't
the,
participate in the wetlands currently,
Which
Which one?
planning board.
They don't? Why not?
Because they're an advisory board. The lawyer,
So are we.
Is it,
yeah, I do have a lawyer.
No,
no, but they're,
but they wouldn't a lawyer, if they had a legal question?
yeah, they
They
could.
don't participate in the wetlands.
Oh, really? That's news to me. Okay.
All right.
they don't participate in what?
In the wetlands review. They're just an advisory board, the same as.
Right, but I think that's what they're going to change, they want to change that, right? Is
Yes,
that,
but what I'm saying is.
Right now.
They have a lawyer, they do
Right.
have an engineer,
Right.
but they those two people come into play with the planning board only when they have a final jurisdiction. Subdivision lot line modification, if there is a wetlands application or
Okay.
special permit application before them,
Got it.
the engineer nor the lawyer
Are involved.
participates in the review.
Okay.
I think the process
That's good to
itself,
know.
though, the most important part of the process for us and for them is the site visit.
Right.
Actually getting to the site and seeing it up close.
Right.
Now, we can't say that everybody here goes to every site, and the planning board, they do designate, people on the committee to definitely, own in on that site. One of the realities is the job of the council person or the person on the town board has expanded in my short 8 years as a town board member. And it's becoming more and more and more involved with lots of things.
Right.
Does the actual town board member does the entire town board go to every site? The answer is no.
Right.
The liaisons from those committees consistently go to every site. The answer is probably no. So I think it comes down to confidence. Does the public have the confidence in the planning board, in its current composition, the way it's made up, to be able to make these kinds of judgments? I think what comes through a little bit loud and clear when you get involved in this discussion is some people don't have that confidence. Maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't. People on the planning board sometimes recuse themselves for obvious reasons. They can't be impartial because maybe they represent the client or something of that nature. So I just think that a lot of it is confidence, a lot of it is people. You should probably have people on the site that are most knowledgeable, that can make good, sound judgments and present that material back. I do think, though, it's the responsibility of the liaison to that committee to make sure that that committee is behaving in a professional, ethical manner and making sure that the town code is being protected, and have I always done that for you? No. Could I have done it, could I do a better job than that? The answer is yes, you could always do a better job.
All of us.
No, that goes, yeah, but I think what I'm hearing, and I came in loud and clear last Tuesday, is that wetlands are extremely, extremely important. They function, they have so many vital functions to the future of this island that they have to be protected and protected to the best of our ability. And that means we need to be more consistent and more firm, more honed in on the town code. So I think people, if you look at my opening remarks about town code, the comprehensive plan, the role of the liaison, these things are critical in making sure that Shelter Island's wetlands are protected as we move forward. Regardless of what minor adjustments we make in this process.
Right.
But you have to have confidence in the people that are doing it. And that's what it comes down to.
But you guys are going to ultimately review the whole thing once it's, like once the planning board goes through it all anyway.
Yeah, but
You would review it.
I think that, I think that it'll come, but, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, Christina, but this term rubber stamp came about as an elected official. I never thought I could rubber stamp anything for any reason. Do I take the weight? I'm only on a number of committees, but other committees come forward and I don't rubber, you still critically look at those things as they come before you, and I see the vote was 4-2. What did those two, what was the dissenting vote here?
Right.
What did these people have to say? Those are important issues of bringing it to the town board. Again, it's confidence in the people that you elect. It's confidence in the people that are on the planning board. It's confidence in the people that serve on critical committees like this committee or the Conservation Advisory Council. It's a critical bunch of people that come together and try to give the best perspective they can based on their site visit, their experiences, and hopefully that influences how that project moves forward and how our wetlands are protected. And it's not I don't know if we ever have a perfect system, it's only perfect if you have everybody that is on that team behaves in a professional manner and goes in with a critical eye. And I just came from a meeting where the WMAC constantly, we have certain people on the WMAC that constantly talk about town code. Why are we allowing this? Why are we allowing that? How come we're, that's good. You can't have 7 people on a committee that all think exactly the same. This is the room to have that critical analysis and to be able to discuss these things. I hope I made some sense. I have a tendency to ramble, but I'm trying to give you my perspective of, I'm keeping an open mind in 2 weeks. I go into that meeting, and I think all 4 of my colleagues are doing the exact same thing. Right, trying to get the best process that would safeguard work. And I'm still open to how best to have that done. I have to be convinced.
At that meeting, it said to streamline the process. Why do you want to streamline a process? I mean, this is a critical item for not just Shelter Island.
Well, that's a good point. That's a great point, but that's your,
That's my opinion.
no, not your opinion, of the term streamline. Streamline is not necessarily shooting it through. Streamlining is just making it more efficient and more, so.
Making sure it's posted online.
Yeah,
Like, yes.
Yeah, that's
Which is a
precisely the point.
town responsibility and not the committees. And I don't understand why that wasn't.
No, you're taking this wrong, because this
I
is
am.
not on the town board agenda. This is on the CAC agenda. Therefore, CAC clerk and the
Right.
CAC committee
Right.
needs to make sure that the discussion documents are posted on the website. Right?
So we fell through this then. Okay, we never experienced this before. I don't know why we've been in there. Whether Dorothy was.
Have you ever contacted, have you ever done that before?
What?
Made sure that all that was posted?
No, because it always was. I always check it to make sure, because remember, we were only getting 3 copies?
Mhm.
So I made sure that the PDFs were there.
Right, right.
But now we were getting 7 copies. Why should I be responsible for that?
Right.
That's the town. That's that, we have no.
I don't
But you don't have access to the
excuses, but
website.
we are going through transition on all our committees.
I understand
And that's.
Who do
All committees.
we contact then to make sure it's posted?
It's your
So you-
clerk's responsibility to look
Okay.
at it, right?
All right.
You're going through the transition.
Right, yeah.
I got it. I want to make sure
I
that.
understand
Yeah,
that.
it's in the transition.
And unfortunately,
Yeah.
it was a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
We closed Friday, and that didn't help.
Right.
That didn't help the situation.
Yeah, no, things happen.
So,
Jim, can we go back to the, what was a proposition that's before the committee as far as the planning board being involved in wetlands applications, correct?
yes,
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I understood it from reading the paper, that there is discussion about having the planning board be the regulatory agency for wetlands applications. They would vote on wetlands applications, approve or deny, and the town board would not be involved at all. Is that correct?
well, yeah, that's kind of that's what's being
Okay.
proposed.
Correct, right, that's the proposal, right,
Yeah.
right. And again, it is more, that's to look at efficiency, and you have a lot of responsibilities as a town board, and
No, and I think some people come in, someone like our town attorney, like Stephen.
Right.
It's got obviously other municipalities that do it other ways, and it seems to be, whether it's more efficient, less efficient.
right,
I don't know that. I have to be convinced of that.
correct.
So I'm keeping my mind open to that. But yes, you're right on the head.
Does anybody do it that way?
Yes.
To have the planning board? Any other municipalities?
We are literally the only
We are
municipality
literally
in the
the only
that
ones
would
that do it this
rule
way.
on the wetland.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay,
So I mean.
Uncharted territory, huh?
It is,
Yeah.
it is. And when you're used to doing something for 8 years.
change is hard.
It does. I mean, yeah. And I see the concern from people out there saying, you're the elected people that
Right.
are put into office.
Right.
We want you to be accountable, because if you don't do
Right.
the right job, we can vote you out.
Right.
The committee is different.
So if there is, let's say this does go through, or at a committee, and there is an issue, since those people are not voted on, correct, if something is not working correctly, the town board, they have the authority to step in and to a committee and say, you guys aren't doing your job right, or an individual needs to, I mean,
That's precisely what happened a few years ago with the site plan review. It was before the planning board.
Okay.
The public came before the town board, complained about the process. 2 months later, it was switched back to the town board.
Okay. I mean, I understand as a resident in the Shelter Island, if there's something that they don't feel comfortable with, like you say, they have the power to vote people in or out of office. So if there's things with buildings near wetlands, the procedure is to go to town board at, well, this point and just say, okay, we're not happy, and then there's a discussion there, correct?
It's a legislative change.
Okay,
But the planning board is appointed by the town board.
correct.
Planning board decisions should be fairly black and white. It's all according to code.
Correct.
So if the decision is not taking the code into consideration, it's up to the town board to look for corrective action with the planning board. But otherwise, there's not a lot of discretion in there. I feel like we have a code, and the code dictates what can and what can't be done. And if the code says 100 feet, I can't say, oh, today I feel like 85.
Well, you can have a variance.
Yeah.
That's why we get these, because it's an application for a variance. So there is
Okay,
some.
that's a little bit of weird.
It's
Right, right.
In general, it should be a fairly objective process. So therefore,
Well, I guess I would say that, I mean, generally the people on the committee here have some type of environmental background or, septic systems we have here, and we have, for the planning board, I don't know a lot of all their background, but do they have people that have a science ecology background or?
Honest to them.
Well, I think the makeup of all the committee, two things here that you're bringing up. Number one is the town board in the last year has made more changes to individual membership on committees
Correct.
based on not just attendance, but actual input. That there are people, and I won't go into committees that I sit on, but people that show up at meetings, never say a word, never do any homework, never make any site visits,
Right.
never really do much of anything. We've replaced them. I mean, it is you walk that fine line of trying to
Correct.
pat a volunteer on the back saying, thank you very much for doing the job.
Right.
At the same time, you have a job to do.
Yeah.
So there is some accountability here. So I think we are, and the other thing that we're trying to do a better job of on all committees, not just this committee, but is to get more of a team approach type of thing, so that you have somebody that is an educator, somebody who's somebody's got a couple environmental people, somebody that's working with something.
You're talking on all committees or on?
Well, we're on all committees,
Okay.
basically on all committees. even-
Waterways or whatever?
Yeah, everything. We're
Okay.
trying to get people that mesh a little bit better, that bring different things to that committee, whether it's financial or legal or social or an educator type of thing. Deer and Tick was a perfect, type of thing. We never, we always had guys. We now have, Julia's on there. But Julia fills a big role. She does all the educational stuff for us, which is huge. She's trying to recruit new people. We never had that before on Deer and Tick. We have a scientist, we have a doctor, we have another doctor, or, we recruited people to that committee, and I was a liaison of it, that fit together. It's actually a perfect fit. And you got a guy like Bo Payne that comes in, and he just completes the whole picture for the Deer and Tick. So every committee that I've tried to look to see how can we possibly improve it with not just putting in a warm body, but putting in somebody who's got a role to fill on that committee. It's not perfect, we're still dealing with volunteers, but I think both of you have just been in. I think you both are wonderful people to come to this committee. I think you bring a new perspective to the committee. We didn't have that from a couple of people that we asked to leave. I just went through WMAC, we did the same thing. We're working through a transition, there. So it's not like we're not trying to put all the right pieces together. It's a lot of work to put the right pieces together, to interview. We spend a zillion amount of time at town board meetings interviewing people. How many interviews did we have this year? Every meeting, the town board meeting goes 2 hours. For the executive session, it goes 2.5. But an hour and 15, 20 minutes of that at least, they have, are interviews for committees. get up all the people that come off committees, a lot of work. A lot of work.
So if this proposal is approved by the town board, then we would not have any wetlands applications at all to come to this committee. Is that
No,
correct?
no,
It's
exactly the same.
Okay,
Your role will stay the same.
okay.
Yeah. And
So our recommendation would go to the planning board instead of going to the town board.
right. And it'll be a good link between the two committees, by the way. One of them lands together.
Okay.
So what do you think? Will that keep it the way it is or change it?
I think that's a good plan. You know, let's see, go,
Go to the town board?
I thought you said to the planning board, yeah. Mhm.
Then the town board would not have any say at all.
Well, I don't know if they shouldn't have any say, but I think that I think the two, the planning board and our working together is a good thing.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So,
It might be a review process, it might be a good thing to have them, give a final,
in exchange of,
just to make sure something's not crazy,
Right, some,
but I would think that would be
The
something.
last thing I'll say on this is the more important resurrection of the ethics committee. You know, we bragged about years, decades going by without an ethics committee. That's something you brag about. We needed an ethics committee. Every town has an ethics committee. And we put together some great people on that ethics committee that I think are, and town board, as a liaison, you can go to the ethics committee and get some advice, and not just from Stephen, but also from the ethics committee on, should this person be involved in this discussion? Should they not be involved in this discussion? It's time that we do. And it's very unique. This island is so small that it's almost impossible that you don't know somebody that comes before you. It might be a neighbor, you might have put in a septic for that person. So you do, because of the size, this is not Levittown or Hempstead, some big town where you don't know anybody.
Right.
You pretty much know a lot of people.
Yeah.
So it's more important than ever that we behave in an ethical manner. And I think we're working and trying to get that, better suited.
so last, Roxanne?
Well, I guess, sorry, I'm losing my voice tonight. Well, given the conversation, it sounds as though the planning board brings, I don't know individuals on the planning board, but Jim's presentation of the relative specific talents of the individuals on that board, it just on the surface from this conversation, that does make some sense to me to maybe make a change. I guess what I was wondering though is, I never make recommendations in a vacuum. And the reason for did you explain that already, Jim? The reason for the proposed change, like what is not going as in the most desirable fashion so that this change is being recommended?
I think Steve can answer.
Is that
probably
idea-
better because
that would
he's more
help me.
involved in that. I'm not involved with it.
Okay,
With planning.
yeah, what's the problem?
Couple things.
Okay.
The first thing is, wetlands is environmental thing, right?
Right,
And
clearly.
it's in the hands of elected officials who, there is no guarantee there is an environmental person in there whatsoever, right?
Okay, right.
So the goal is to include these people exactly like over here, or the
Right.
planning board. Next member will come up, yes, we would like to have somebody with an environmental background on this committee, right? So,
Right.
that's one thing.
Okay.
Another thing is, again, I feel like in our legislation is a lot of misplacement by historic involvement of Shelter Island.
Mhm.
Town board, not a single voter on it, but they voting on moorings, right?
Okay.
And ruling on moorings.
Okay.
And this was the same thing, everything was on the town board because that was the most, frequently functioning board. You look at any other municipality, there is a natural resources, there is a zoning board, sometimes deal with it. I have a list who deals with it with other municipality. It's never in a town board, never. The town board is a legislative body.
Right.
And moving on, by the administration of the entire application, it's just so disjointed
Okay.
that precisely these things happen, right?
Yeah.
It's not posted. Who's this fault? it's been before 3 different boards with 3 different clerks.
Right.
And in total, we have like 27 people involved in this review. Right?
Okay.
That's great.
So to simply just to take the body who is essentially the least affected in this review would not just, it wouldn't really speed the process. It would shorten it by, depends on the application, couple weeks. Yeah, maybe, but the review would be, essentially the same depth.
One of the things
Thank you.
we're trying to do right off the bat too is been a transition, obviously, huge transition next door to the town clerk's office.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we were finding it was getting very frustrating at our end to get applications that were incomplete. And it's more so in the previous meeting in WMAC, almost every other application was, something was missing out of it. And it was really frustrating for the, so we wanted to make sure that when applications come in, for everybody's sake, but particularly for the committees that only meet once a month, that you walk in there and you have starting point, a complete application that's filled out properly. So we're taking measures to make sure that that is the first step that needs to be done in all applications that come to the town. And what needs to be sent to the building department, and they need to check to make sure the application was complete. So I think that was a huge step forward for us, because I was getting very frustrated in a lot of these meetings that truly the application was missing some pretty important information. We didn't know whether the person was a year-round resident. We didn't know if they had other moorings and LLCs and all kinds of complications with applications going, does this person who owns this property, are they entitled to this? Do they already have their set maximum number of moorings? You couldn't tell. So we were trying to refine that area a little bit better from the starting point. And we've taken other measures as well. Site plan reviews, something that we looked at very carefully about Pridwood going into that situation and losing precious months because they were going to have phase 1 and then phase 2 over 2 separate years. Whereas maybe in a site plan review, you would say, you know what, this is, and then COVID hits, of course, so I mean, it really complicated the whole issue. But time's money and money's time, and again, you're trying to, you work with clients all the time. People want to get that system in and they're anxious about it. So when Suffolk County lags and the health department suddenly is not up to snuff and they're backlogged and the computer system goes down and we're waiting months and months and months. And then, other snacks come into play.
Yeah, and you can't even get a permit to start anything.
Correct.
It's very, super frustrating.
It is a little frustrating. Hopefully we are, going to put those things behind us and make some improvements moving forward. So.
You had the building department, so just the bizarreness of the review so when the application came to the town clerk's office in the past, it was reviewed by the clerks there, right? For the completeness of the information, that was all there. But now these applications are so much more complicated and voluminous, right? And so the clerk doesn't have the capability of reviewing these applications in a certain manner. So it goes back to the building department to review the information in it. How bizarre is the fact that the body that basically written the denial for this proposal is reviewing the application for the completeness, like that's a complete legislative nonsense, right? And it goes back to the town board based on that review. So it's basically, it's really been pieced together just to kind of like put a Band-Aid on it, but it's not supposed to function like that.
And being adequately staffed is very, very key here. Run a building department, look at the number of applications we've had, since COVID. I mean, these applications have doubled, tripled. And as Christine just said, the applications, they're not this, they're huge. I mean, they're not building 1,500 square foot homes. They're building 8,000, 10,000, 12,000. I mean, they're very, very complicated. They need a trained eye. Even training people up in these departments has been a challenge. It's been an experience. I think our better days lie ahead, and just being optimistic. Hopefully, identify a weakness, isolate that weakness, let's correct it, let's move on.
Excuse me, but I know there was a time where you'd come in, and I've been on the committee for a long time, and there was nothing to pick up. You'd come in, I'd say, where are the plans? Nobody, eventually they'd find them, and that had never happened before. When we came in, they were there. And, this is quite a while ago, but anyway, that was a little bit hard because you couldn't do your job.
All right, I just,
So we got that covered.
got that covered.
We've exhausted that time.
I think so too.
That's pretty well.
Christina, that was really helpful. Yeah.
Okay, the next item we had was the CAC article for publication. One of the problems with that is that in that article, it says the review by the town board. So we have to wait and hold that to find out who's going to review,
Yes,
so they make a decision.
sure.
Your article it's perfect, we might just have to change something. I hope not, but if it happens, it happens.
Okay.
All right, so we'll hold that. Pesticides is Mark.
So I was not at the last meeting. I understand you had a discussion about pesticides, so I'm sort of gone a little bit. Howard asked me to contact someone at Cornell Farm Extension. His name is Dan Gilren. He's an entomologist. He works mostly with agriculture. I did talk to him on the phone a couple weeks ago, and Howard asked me to find out from him. First of all, he was over at Sylvester Manor. I guess someone saw him there, wondering what was going on over there. So he basically explained to me that because of their operation, their farm stand, and their growing the farm, they were trying to be considered organic. So he was really helping them, looking at alternatives and ways of growing their crops there in an organic style. So he really does not, he's an entomologist, so he's very knowledgeable of insects and pests and those kinds of things. But his main focus is agriculture. He was involved in Shelter Island many, many moons ago when the 4-poster program first got started. He was involved with that.
What's his name, Mark?
Dan Gilray.
Oh, Dan.
Yeah, Doctor, yeah. So he is familiar with Shelter Island and obviously the issue with the ticks, he's aware of that. But he sort of, again, has stepped away from Shelter Island and that. So a couple things I did talk to him about. Number one, he said his suggestions, he said he really feels the committee should discuss, again, I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm not sure what you guys talked about. He sort of implied that whatever type of education material you have, his suggestion is to really kind of focus on one specific aspect because the topic is so broad. It's kind of hard to get people up to speed on everything all at once. So his suggestion was to kind of focus on one thing and use that as your main education piece. We did talk about, obviously, the two main issues probably on Shelter Island are obviously the tick issue and then lawn care, whether it's herbicides for weeds and things for sod. So he also said that the tick issue is obviously very delicate and challenging because you have obviously the health issues, with it, with all the diseases that are with ticks. So it's very challenging to get people to think about using things less or not, not at all, because obviously the health. His suggestions was if we are going to do something, maybe it'd be easier to look at issues with lawn care, as far as alternatives for using different products. So anyway, that's what I got from him. He did give me a contact in the Suffolk County Vector Control. I think his name is Dr. Moses Cucura, C-U-C-U-R-A. So I can contact him if we have some specific questions for him. And Dan even said that he may be willing at some point to come to our committee and talk about some of the research that he's doing with looking at different pesticides, applications, try to find different pesticides that have less environmental impact on waters, for example.
How effective does he think these sprays are right now against the
Sprays.
Any of them? I mean, are they working? Or are they?
I don't have enough knowledge to know.
Yeah, he didn't.
Can I ask about the 4 posters to bring up a sore subject? What's happened about that?
I don't know yet.
You know?
It's a dead end.
And why though?
Because because the state, New York State DEC will never adhere to changing the regulation of the 250 feet and getting all of the people that surround that device within that to concur, that they'll give it a thumbs up. So if you had, let's say, Silver Beach has the bird sanctuary. Around the bird sanctuary, if you measure out 250 feet from the perimeter of the bird sanctuary, I think we said we had like 35 homes. You'd actually have to get all 35 people in writing to say yes to it. If you got 34 people and one person didn't respond, you couldn't do it. You need 100% consensus.
Yeah.
But these rules that are up in the Adirondacks and the Catskills and in more rural, much more rural areas, they don't have this issue.
Yeah.
They can put 4 posters out if they want to deploy them, because they can keep them that safe distance.
That was a committee I was on, and my husband and I were very involved in that. And it's just a shame that it just fell apart because we spent so much money on it and they went in a barn and were not used. And to me, that's kind of, I don't know what to say.
Just to close us, the Deering Committee wrote a letter, supervisor wrote a letter, I participated in that. Bo Payne actually contacted people in the state. And according to the last Deering Committee, which was just weeks ago, they are not changing. They're standing firm with that regulation, which basically kills all the use of 4 posters for most of Eastern Long
Well,
Island.
it has. They're in a barn somewhere, from what I understand.
But now, any of those 34 people at Silver Beach could just spray Prometheum on their lawn then.
No, I understand. I mean, that's why I'm
They
asking.
don't have to clear that with their neighbor.
No, you're right, you're right,
So it's like the whole thing is kind of a
correct.
silly discussion in a way, you know?
Right.
Right.
So that's a good segue into this. Have you ever had these on your door? No?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
All right. So this was on our door 2 weeks ago, whatever it is. One of our neighbors is obviously working with a pesticide company. This one's listed on here. And they, I think by law, are supposed to notify the neighbors if they are spraying in the area. So I'll pass this around and take a look at it. So it tells the dates when they're being sprayed. And also tells on here the 2 different products that are being used. It has its common name and the EPA number, so you can look it up if you are interested to get more information. The first one listed on here is called Astro, and that active ingredient is permethrin, and that's made a derivative of permethrin, right, from chrysanthemum blossoms, whatever. And as far as I understand, again, I'm not an entomologist, the biggest issue with that is obviously, and it's been documented, that if it is sprayed near water, you're not supposed to spray with 100 feet of water or wetlands. It's very toxic to fish larvae and things that are in the water. So that's that. The other active ingredient they use on here is called Killz, Killz. I never heard of it before. It is organic. So I looked that product up and I can pass this around. It is very environmental. It's actually made with cedar oil. It's also known as cedar wood oil. So it's a derivative made from conifer trees. There's a peppermint hybrid type cross as well. So again, this company is sort of trying to do things in an environmental way as best as possible. So anyway, that's the other thing that I had on this.
So I guess we should sort of,
My question on all this stuff is it even effective? You know, or is everybody just making money spraying this random stuff everywhere and hoping something happens? You know, that's the problem.
Have they tested it?
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
is it really effective?
They-
You know?
I mean, obviously, these companies, and they've done it with labs. They've tested insects in the lab and little
Right.
microcosms with them, obviously. The EPA obviously monitors the toxicity of these different chemicals, whatever. So talking about education, the Ticken Committee had its little article I took out of the paper, was it a couple of weeks ago, I guess?
Yes, yeah.
So again, my question I have, is this funded through town dollars to put it in the paper, or how is it funded? And if we want to do something like this, in this format, I thought it was really nice.
Yeah, the Deering Committee has a budget, just like everybody has a budget.
Right,
And yeah, we've taken, obviously, we saved a lot of money on 4 poster, we put that into other assets.
Right.
It's 3 prongs. You had 4 poster and education, and you had culling. So when the 4 poster goes down, or if it went into culling and the aerial survey, and more into the educational piece. And that's the result of that.
But do we have a budget? I mean, I've been on the committee a long time, and we never really had a big budget for doing anything for printing that I can remember.
No, we had.
So I don't think we
small-
did. It was $100. It was the most anything.
Well, I mean, obviously, I haven't looked at the budget rate lately for the CAC,
Right.
but I think what you would want to do for the next budget is to expand your educational piece, because I think that's a more important role you want to take on. I mean,
So,
one thing to look at applications, another thing to get information out. Will everybody adhere to it? No. But if 10 or 15, 20% do,
right.
it's a step in the right direction.
So if we came up with something similar to this and talked about pesticides, and let's say just lawn use, lawn care instead of
Yes.
ticks,
Right.
and we had a nice format like this, we go to the town board and say, to put this in the paper, it's gonna cost $150 or $200.
Have in your budget, you can do whatever, you know,
Okay, well, say it's not in our budget, but could we request special funds from the town board?
have to, you know, so.
I don't know.
Little Amber about it, yeah.
That's what, can we do that?
You can always ask, right?
You'd have to talk to him, I don't do the purse strings here.
Okay, all right,
That's something you'd have to look at.
okay.
By the way, in our line, do we have any, do you know what?
We were supposed to have a meeting on the budget and we never had.
Okay.
I don't ever remember again.
But then my
We
suggestion
did
would
last
be for
year.
the future,
Right.
this would be a high priority.
Right.
Get what it costs, how many articles you'd write,
Right.
every other month
Right.
on something?
So,
Times a year, what would it be? And work that in. And also, you know, you think about the Great Options Fair and everything
Right.
else.
right, yeah, no, you could print something on
There's
paper.
plenty of stuff that you could put out to the public.
Right.
So I think educationally here, that's something to really think about.
So the budget year is January 1, I assume?
Yes,
Okay.
but the budget goes to the town and
Right, right.
no later than mid-August. So mid-August, beginning of September, you want to have all of that in order, what you're asking.
But I'm saying, we wanted to put something like this out in May or June, we could, in theory, make a request to the town.
I will tell you what, I will see him tomorrow for the day and I will talk to him about it and see
Okay,
what it costs for the deer and tick and see if we can get a.
yeah, maybe us to know what this costs and if we could.
It's like $500 for a page ad.
Yeah, I think it's around that, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's not the best way to spend the money, I don't know. Or maybe we can just put it on the website and one costs us.
I think it's a good way to spend them, and.
I do too.
On our
Yeah.
channel 22, have some programs.
Especially on strategic weekends.
But I think you have weekends coming up that you want to pop those things right around Memorial Day,
Memorial Day.
beginning of June.
Yeah.
You know, when the population starts to increase, to get that, you know, more people on the island to read this stuff, get exposed to it.
That'd be a good thing to put in with renters, rental flyers too, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
have no idea.
You gotta think big like that.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point.
I forget what the budget was, but I think the town probably accepted the same as we had the other years, which
Oh,
I think was something like $500. The minimum be only for publications and stuff, but.
All right, so if we have $500, we could do this before the summer.
Or we could ask for more. then.
Well, I'm just saying, if you got one article up before the summer, that would be a
Exactly.
nice goal, that's all I'm saying.
Good, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Good, that's moving in on that. Now, the other thing before I let town liaison report is new business. Now, the arts and crafts fairs in August. Fortunately, again, the town has not listed the dates. I don't know what's going, I mean, we always had the same, it's either the second week or the third week, you know, I mean.
Probably still is.
I'll tell you what day it is.
Why isn't this on the calendar?
I would think it's either Saturday, August 19th, or the 26th, one of the two.
Right, which makes a difference.
Do we get anything from our, on the arts and crafts and that? It's always opposite the arts and crafts.
Definitely, they always apply for the permit.
Yeah, have they applied yet?
No.
No. So-
Yeah,
So they haven't applied
Yeah,
yet?
no,
right.
she normally is getting that together, you know, around.
That's why it's not on the
May.
calendar.
Yeah, I'm just.
It's
Yeah,
about
that's-
this time, right?
But it is either gonna be August 19th or 26th on a Saturday.
Right, so we should know next month in theory.
Right.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, good. So then we'll know, because we want to be there again, and we're going to try to be with Tim Pertel next to us, the Green Options, Fund, which would be real helpful.
Right, good.
And put articles like last year, we put out this special place article, and people took that. And I think we're going to have that, and we'll have some maybe on pesticides and whatever else we can think of. Anybody come up with an idea for the next meeting, we can put that at that table. And we'll need volunteers to man that table also, certain hours, not the whole day actually. So that was my last item, so just be aware that that's coming up in August. Again, nobody knows the date, but we'll find out. Yeah.
Howard, I don't mean to interrupt, it's Pam, but the date on that is August 26th.
It is definitely, thank you, Pam.
It is. I have the application for a booth myself for that. I just thought I'd let you know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're probably right.
Okay, so that's August 26th. So if you just think about thinking of manning our table at that time.
Yes, absolutely.
Applications are?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm lucky I'm on vacation. Okay, any old business? We really don't have any old business to discuss, and now we give the table.
No, I've spoken.
You're finished?
I mean, the only thing I can tell you is water-wise, Fresh Pond is moving along nicely. I don't want to keep anybody outspoken.
The other last thing I have to say is, as the conservation, we get involved with a lot of different items of the code. We get excavation, we get, the 100-foot, we're into now zoning, 13312, which is the nearshore and peninsula overlay district. There's a section of the code that says no construction within 100 feet, which backs up our theory all along that we shouldn't be within 100 feet. And a lot of developers have argued, no, 129 says it's a permit required. But there's the other section of the code that says no construction. So I always go with the no construction in 100.
Yeah, what's happened, years ago, when it was 10-foot elevation,
Right.
that's, and a lot of houses were built with a 10-foot elevation thing, and they could be 50 feet from it. Then the DEC moved it to 75, and then the town wanted jurisdiction between 75 and 100.
Right.
But I mean, that's where a lot of the problems are, and that's why we get a lot of these reviews. The houses built back when it was legal to just, as long as you're 10 foot above, that they were all good then. And so it's hard to really, tell somebody they can't do something with a piece of property that was legal when they built it, But
Yeah.
the thing is, when you're totally demolishing a piece of property and you're gonna, put a whole new structure up, then things should go according to code at that point.
Yeah, and I just want to remind the people on the committee, when you go visit a site, you see,
What's going on?
look at 133-12. That's the one that says 100 feet, no construction. And 129-2, which gives the.
Thing is, like probably 60% of all the construction or more on Shelter Island was done during the period that it was just a 10-foot elevation. So, I mean, there's a lot of structures out there that are.
I don't know what the town will eventually do, because I think I've mentioned it before, on the west side of Montclair, there's a property that gets flooded when we have high tides. And, they put in a cistern for water. Not a good idea, but they did, because they had no water. But the septic system drains out right into the bay every time we have that high tide. It's not good. I don't know what we can do. I know there's this thing about building a mound up for the septic, but that's not going to last long.
It's just too low.
Sea level's changing.
Well, also, it just never should have been built in the first place, but it was done back in the 30s and 40s. And,
Exactly.
that's the way it
So
was.
you have to think ahead on this and see what we can do. And, one of the main things is to put in a new IA system to make sure we get them. I mean, we have over 900 pools and we have 200 IA systems. Just doesn't make sense for my conservation head that we're doing this here and we're not enforcing the IA more. And I understand the problems, the limited funding and stuff like that.
Well, it's all coming around. I mean, since the COVID thing and all the county problems,
Right.
everything's actually getting a lot more streamlined. So it's just like the town itself,
Probably has the same issue.
everything's coming around. Yeah, I mean, everything's coming around.
Everything, but also, when we go and look at these properties, we have to make sure that something is looked at carefully. Most of us do that, we look at everything, and there's just a lot of sections of the code that we have to look at. Well, I look at 5 or 6 sections every time I get a set of drawings to see what it's what's affected. It's not just 129.
I think, Howard, with those IA systems, we're looking at it in the middle of town, 14% of the IA systems that have been, of the 200, about 28 according to Meg,
Right.
of the 200 are in the center of town. If that's our thickest part of the aquifer lens, you know, and it's feeding out to everybody else, it's almost, regardless of whether you go with municipal wastewater or you go with IA systems for the, regardless, it's a start.
That's right.
The second prong of this is how do you get the vast majority of people that live in the center of town on an IA system? That is the next critical piece that we have to look at. So when there were a couple people in there the other day, I was working here last week, and we're talking about it in raising the incentives. I said,
Right.
well, take the red and orange area, put the map of Shelter Island over it. If you live in the red and orange area, let's up the ante.
Right.
Let's encourage that more.
Well, you know what stopped
That
them?
should be, that's ground zero. The fact that people in Silver Beach are putting in, and it's not a bad thing. But I'd rather see them in the center of town, and it'd pay bigger dividends if we put more of our energy level and financial resources in the center to get the center problem cleaned up.
Yeah.
In a multi-pronged approach.
Well, the problem was that whole tax situation, that screwed up the whole thing, because
It did.
people didn't have extra money to throw into it,
That's right.
and they just gave up.
Right.
You know, so I mean, and now that finally is settled, it should have been settled in 30 days.
Yeah.
Instead of 30 years.
It took several years, but Fred Beal and a bunch of
Yeah.
local people really followed through with that.
Right.
Really followed through.
I'm getting charged to redo my tax from that year that I was charged with it, so
There you go.
Yeah.
I'll pass that on to the town, I think.
We got,
This is their county, Suffolk County, that's their problem. Not the
Yeah.
town, so.
All right.
Okay, that's,
Can I bring up something?
sure.
Wrong environmental thing, the pond down from Highbury Lane is getting to be no more. I go there every day, it's just mud, and I've never, ever seen it like that.
You know what the tidal, huh? The tidal inlet
It's a
there?
tidal pond.
Right.
Tidal inlet where you find all the
Yeah,
herons?
I mean, I've been here 25 years, it's never been, I'd like, I mean, I think it's a good idea if everybody could go down and look at it, it's just almost mud now. And before, you couldn't see the bottom.
Did the whole thing close off again? The whole inlet?
The stream has not been good, it's very narrow, but it's, and that's affecting it definitely. So, well, you know, you.
Yeah.
It up,
Oh, yeah.
so, but now it's pretty.
And it depends on what the winds are doing as to where it wants to end up going.
Yeah, well, and that changes all the time,
You know, it,
constantly, yeah.
we'll shoot out this way, it'll be great, next thing you know, moves down, you know.
I know, because
The engineering is much more involved than what we presently do by the town going down with and dredging, you know, doing a mechanical dredge. And it's great for the first couple of days.
Right.
Next storm comes in,
Right.
fills right in again,
But-
and the pond suffers.
Right, okay, but I mean, I've been there 25 years, and it's never been like this, it's just a mud pond,
Do you
basically.
have a neighborhood association down?
I was on it, yeah, I'm not.
Do we
right
have
now.
one? Yes, we do.
We do have,
Yeah.
well, you know,
Well, wait.
Jordan knows about it, right? Our associate,
That's
we were
right.
both on it together, I mean,
Right.
yes.
Yeah, so maybe they should.
Well, I could talk to them too, but,
You know,
yeah,
Bring it up.
you need
But-
to.
The thing is, they need to ultimately put a pipe out. at the
Correct.
other end.
But it-
That's what has to happen.
That's what I've.
Otherwise, you're just
okay.
Exactly.
gonna do this every,
But-
it's an exercise.
It is an environmental issue, and it's
Yeah.
really alarming, because I've never, ever seen it
That would,
like that now.
I mean,
Yeah.
pipe there and a pipe at the other.
Because that end doesn't,
Get that flowing
that end doesn't
through.
move, that end
Right.
stays, you
No,
know,
it
it's
does.
pretty
Yeah.
consistent.
It's funky.
Well, if you don't mind, if you all maybe might go down and take a look.
Yeah,
For the
It's-
next meeting, we'll report.
Then make some recommendation, yeah.
It's
Okay.
completely,
Nature's doing its thing. That's what normally
Okay,
would happen.
Clearly,
And
yeah.
We're trying to do something artificial.
well, I'm not
True.
saying what to do about it.
Oh, no, I'm saying, yeah.
You should be aware of it.
Right, no, I understand. If we want it open, we have to make our,
Maybe we don't want to do anything about it. Let,
Exactly.
to say, let
Just make a
nature,
decision.
at least please
Take it,
maybe
yeah.
take a
I
look.
understand, it's a decision.
Yeah.
For the people who live along Monaca Creek, we did talk about dredging projects for the coming year. We are and have been trying to get the Suffolk County to move up Monaca Creek further. And not stop it, to go up further north and deeper.
Right.
Anything that we can do. Now, obviously, with that municipal wastewater, where you saw where most of the nitrogen is going down into Monaca Creek. But when you would open it up, or you would get rid of it a little bit, it wouldn't stagnate in that one area. a large percentage of that flow is going towards Bonanza Creek. It's not going in the opposite direction. That's where it's headed.
That's what that hydrolysis said.
Well, yeah, well, that,
But before, it was going predominantly to Clinilicus Field, and that was in the first report. So there's a discrepancy there, but you're right.
You're talking from the school or from?
Talking about the,
Town.
yeah, I think they isolated Clinilicus because of that's where they originally chose to show the flow that was, and there is flow that goes.
Oh, sure, there's
There is flow.
because you're on that high.
It goes from high
it was
ground.
both directions.
Sure, it goes
It's all over.
It goes probably in almost a 360.
Yeah, and the fact that
To a certain
it
extent.
goes way down to the bottom and below the other wells is another item to think about. So anyway, wastewater is going to be a big issue. And then to get potable water to that town. I mean, they're just cleaning up the wastewater, but take years that they can use their wells. And that's the next item, which is like Jim says, the first step is to get the IA, the second step is to get the wastewater. Third step is to get good drinking water there. So
Right.
with 3-step delivery, I hope we can get it. So
Banana Creek used to be a real vital place. I mean, there was a lot of, I remember baby horseshoe crabs. I mean, my whole life I lived there and, all that stuff. And that wasn't that long ago. I'm talking about, it was pretty good up until, I would say,
We're not talking 1800s here.
no. I'm talking like around the 90s,
Late 80s.
and then it started to really, kind of go.
Yeah.
So, but that's the thing. But they started that 5 mile an hour speed limit thing. And this is my opinion, but we had 3 bunch of kids that were water skiing in that creek all day long, tearing, just stirring up the bottom. And there were guys in there with clam boats, digging clams by hand and everything else like that. There was a lot of action going on in there. And it was a vital, there was a lot going on there. And then at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, we'd stop water skiing and we'd go and we'd troll for weak fish, salty dog lures and catch them. 3 to 5 pound weak fish all summer long. 5 mile an hour, nobody could do anything but put out of the creek. Nothing ever got stirred up. And there's 3 feet of muck that nothing can live in on the bottom of that creek. And if that was stirred up and gotten out of there, it would open up again, it would probably be fine. It would at least improve it. But that's the problem. Just walk around out there. Once you get into that stuff, you're up to your waist in muck, and there's nothing that's alive in there. All the clams are dead. Anything that's in there is dead. There's no oxygen.
It's a perfect example when you went under South Midway there and we opened that back up again.
Right.
That thing went from black in a matter of months to a healthy wetlands.
Yeah.
I mean, it just changed dramatically.
Yeah.
Just take it. But nobody got off the, you gotta inspect those things. You
Right.
go down and look at those culverts. If you don't get out of the car and you don't get down there and see that they're clogged up and there's debris in there,
Right.
I mean, how do you expect it to flush?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the environmental challenges moving forward are gonna be tremendous
Yeah.
for this island. Tremendous.
But that I think that really helped, I mean, anyway.
more action in there.
Yeah, I think more action and, it definitely helps, just leaving something
And
alone.
I think what the problem mainly is where do you do the spoils? I don't think.
Well, it's all muck. It's all dead. It's seaweed that died and just, laid on the bottom and built up.
Where do you put it?
I don't know.
That's the problem.
But see, and even Old Hap used to make a channel through there. He used to drag a mushroom anchor behind his boat. And it would go slow through there on an outgoing tide and all that would churn up and it would go out with the tide. That's kind of the way to do it still. Let it go out with the tide,
Did they ever used to use it as fertilizer? I mean, way back,
A what?
fertilizer?
They dredged it?
I'm sure they did. They had the farms, all of Montclair Avenue, where you live, that was all farms. Those roads were put in only like probably in the 60s. So I mean,
I would say, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's not like it was not abused a little bit, you know what I mean, by fertilizers and pesticides and everything that went in there, but it was livelihood.
Before you adjourn the meeting, I want to ask anybody.
Oh, yeah. Anybody on the Zoom have any questions? Matt or Meg or anyone? Pam, we heard from you, but do you have any more good ideas?
No, Howard, but I did ask you if you'd like to send me that invasive plant list and the other plant list that you were talking about last week, I believe. I'd be glad to look it over for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. As soon as Dan comes back, he's gonna put that together, Dan Clark, and then we'll get it to you. And
Yeah, I'll
then
just take
we'll-
a quick look, give you my little expertise on plant material and stuff like that. I'd be happy to do it.
That's great. Thank you, Pam.
Okay, thanks, Howard.
Okay, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Everybody? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Comes coming.
Oh, see you. Order's in the corner. Matt Sherman's an engineer.
Is he engineer what for the town?
No, he's guys on the